Hey everybody! So today we're going to construct a pattern from the original doors of the Hall of the Two Sisters in the Alhambra in Granada, Spain. This pattern is also found a couple other places, but that's the original source of the pattern. So let's get into it. So I'm in GeoGebra Classic 5. And we're going to start by typing point A equals 0, 0, and point B equals 1, 0 into our input bar. And I'm going to use my scroll wheel to zoom in. And I'm going to use my regular polygon tool to click on A, then B. And I want a four-sided polygon. So this is the square that our pattern is going to be situated in. And I want to make this square have opacity 0 so that when I select it, or when I click inside it, I don't select it. Okay, so then I want to put in diagonals, a vertical and a horizontal. So I'm just going to use my line tool to put in my diagonals. And I'm going to go ahead and find that center point with my intersect tool, not the point tool, the intersect tool. I could have selected the line and then the line, and then that would give me the intersection. And then I'm going to use my perpendicular bisector tool to put in my vertical and my horizontal. Cool. So now I want to focus mostly on this bottom left corner, and in particular this triangle, and we're going to construct the minimal amount of information that we need to then algorithmically generate the rest of the pattern. So I'm going to grab my intersect tool and I'm going to put in these 2 points and a diagonal, and then I want to bisect these 2 angles. So I'm going to grab my angle bisector tool and I'm going to select those 3 points in order and those 3 points in order. So now I've bisected those 2 angles. And then I want a horizontal line through this point. There's a few different ways I can get it. A clever way to get it is to reflect this line over this line, but perhaps that's not obvious. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my intersect tool to put a point here, and then I'm going to put a parallel line to the bottom of the square through that point. All right, so then I'm going to also put a point here, and then I want a vertical line through H, so I'm going to use my parallel line tool and put that in. Not H, I. Names of the things aren't that important, and if you do things in a different order than I do, your names will be totally different, which is why I don't have names of these objects visible. Okay, so then we want to put a point here, and I want a line parallel to this line through that point. And then I want to put a point here with my intersect tool, and I want to put in this circle. Then I'm going to grab my compass tool and copy that circle to the center, and I'll eventually also copy it over here, but not just yet. All right. I want to grab my parallel line tool and put a line through this point that's parallel to this line. And I'm going to make these 2 lines blue. I should have done that before, because those are going to be pattern lines. And then I'm going to grab my intersect tool, and I want this point here where that angle bisector intersects my circle. Okay, I'm going to grab my reflect about line tool, and I want to reflect this line over this line and this line over this line. And I want to grab, with my intersect tool, this point here, and I'm going to put in this line that's going to be a pattern line. So I'm going to color it blue. That is also parallel to this line. Okay. Now I'm going to grab a couple of points with my intersect tool that don't seem obvious. So the first one is this one, and then the second one is this one. And then I want to reflect this point over this line, and I'm going to put in pattern line through those 2 points. And let's go ahead and use our compass tool to copy this circle over here. All right. Intersect tool. Let's grab this point. And then I want to reflect that point over here, and I want to reflect this point over here. And I'm going to grab my polygon tool, and I'm going to put in my first shape, which is this kite. And then I also want to reflect this point over here. I'm going to need that point eventually. All right. Let's grab our intersect tool and put in our second polygon. So I've wanted to define these 2 points, and then I'm going to define this triangle down here. Okay. And I want a vertical line through this point, so I'm going to grab my parallel line tool. That's also going to be a pattern line. And then I'm going to grab my line tool, and I want to put in this line here, which is also an angle bisector, but because I already had those 2 points, I didn't need to use my angle bisector tool. And let's grab this point right here with the intersect tool, and then with our polygon tool, we can put in this kite. All right, I need a little bit more information for this little half star that's going to live right here. So we're going to grab our reflect about line tool, and we're going to reflect this point over and this point over. And then I've got this point defined. I'm going to grab my perpendicular line tool and put in a line perpendicular to this one. And I'm going to color that line red for right now so that we know that's the one we're going to be reflecting over in a second. So let's grab this point where the blue line intersects the red line, and then I want to reflect 2 points over that red line. I want to reflect this point, and I want to reflect this point. And then I need to construct a couple more lines, so I'm going to construct this line, which I think it's going to be a pattern line. So let me color it blue. And I need to construct this line, which is also a pattern line. So let me color it blue. So that's through those 2 points that we just defined. All right. Now I want to grab this point, and I want to reflect that point over this line. I know this is getting a little complicated and these points seem kind of arbitrary at this point, but I promise it's all going to come together soon. All right, so then I want to reflect this stuff over here. So I'm going to grab these 5 points by holding down Control and selecting, and then selecting this line. And then I'm going to put in this polygon. And then I need some of these points reflected over this line. So I need this one, I need this one, and I need this one, and this one. And now we've got sort of a complicated shape we've got to trace here. So it goes like this. Like so. And we've pretty much got everything that we need now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide everything except for line L and point E, which are my vertical here and my center point here, and those polygons. So I'm going to hide all those objects except for L. If you don't see your objects like this, sort by object type. That allows you to select all of the same type. And then I'm going to hide all my points except for E. And what I want to do is I'm going to select these and show their labels so that I can easily call them in my code. So first thing I'm going to do is take my quadrilateral Q1 here and my polygon poly 2 here, and I'm going to make rotations of 1/8 of a circle, or pi over 4, about point E by typing sequence rotate open curly brackets for my list of objects, Q1 and poly 4, close the curly brackets. Oops. So those are the things I want to rotate, and I want to rotate them by pi times I over 4 about point E, where I varies from 0 to 7. And why doesn't that like that? What did I do? Sequence rotate Q1 and poly 4 by pi I over 4 about E, where I varies from 0 to 7. I have not run into this problem before. It's telling me I have an illegal operation, but that doesn't make any sense. Let me try to retype that. Sequence rotate the thing I want to rotate, the amount I want to rotate, what I want to rotate about, and I want to rotate Q1 and poly 2. I don't know what I had typed wrong before, but it works now. So yeah, maybe if you notice what I did wrong, to put it in the comments, but that's what it should look like. So I'll leave that up for just a minute so you can see that definition. And then I'm going to hit enter. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing for these 3 polygons, except I only want to rotate by 1/4 of the circle, so pi over 2. So sequence, rotate, thing I want to rotate, pi I over 2. The amount I want to rotate, what I want to rotate about is E, where I varies from 0 to 3. And the thing I want to rotate is T1, Q3, and Q2. And you'll notice that only puts them on half. So what I'm going to do is grab my reflect about line tool and reflect the other half. And I can hide my polygons now. And I can hide my line and my point. Oh, I want to keep my poly one because that's my bounding polygon. And there's our pattern. I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry about my little hiccup with my sequence there. Comment if you try to construct this or if you have any questions. All right, thanks.